Hello friends, welcome to my YouTube channel Computer Science Classes by Nikhil Srivastava. And in this video we will continue our discussion of inheritance. So as far as inheritance is concerned, so we studied about inheritance that the child class takes on the properties of the parent class, or it derives from the parent class. So in let me first of all tell you about the access modes, and then the way you do inheritance in C++. What is the syntax for doing inheritance in C++? So in C++, when you specifically talk about C++ and inheritance in C++, there are three access modes. One is the public access mode, that is the most frequently used, then the private access mode, and then there is the protected access mode. Okay, so suppose you have a class, and suppose the class is A, and now you want to derive a class out of this class, suppose say class B. Then how do you derive a class B from class A? You write something like this. Now you write, first of all you write a semicolon, and then you write the accessibility mode. Suppose I say that the accessibility mode over here is public. So this means that class B publicly inherits from class A. Okay, and if say about class B, suppose inherits from class B through protected inheritance, then what will I write? I will write something like this. And if it is private, then I will write like this. So most frequently used is the public inheritance. So we will study public inheritance first, and then in the upcoming videos we will study about what is private and what is protected inheritance. Okay, so what happens when the accessibility mode is private, and what happens when the accessibility mode is public. So when the accessibility mode is public, then all the public members of the base class become public members of the derived class, and all the protected members of the base class become protected members of the derived class, and the private members of the base class are not affected because they are not visible in the derived class. Okay, so private members, the first rule of contract with private members is that they are only visible from within the class. Okay, so what flexibility does any member variable or any member function, if it is public, what flexibility does it offers to me? The flexibility that is offered to me is that I can access that from outside the class using the object of the class. For example, in this case, even I can access even.setName. See, and I pass the value, say suppose Nikhil. There will be no issues with it. Why there will be no issues with it? Because even is an object of employee class, and setName, which is a member function of the employee class, is a public function. So that is accessible from outside the class. But we cannot do something like this. Even.name. This is not valid, my dear friends. This will never be valid. You see, it is already giving a compile time error. If you go and actually run this program, it will never run and compile. Okay, like this. Now what I will do is that let me do one thing. Let me make it protected, and then I will make it private also. Okay, so in employee class there is a member variable that is protected, and the name is protected. Okay, now I will create a class, suppose permanent employee. Okay, and this permanent employee is derived from the class, which class? Employee, and through public inheritance. What kind of inheritance? It is derived from the employee class through public inheritance. Now my dear friends, what did I say to you about public inheritance? If you even go to this PowerPoint presentation, then you will get an idea. When the access specifier for base class is public, then all the public members of the base class become public members of the derived class, and all the protected members of the base class become protected members of the derived class. So it is like this. So now in this case, you have in the base class you have one protected member. What is a protected member? Name is one protected member. So that this protected member will become the protected members in the derived class, and the set name, which is the public member in the base class, will become the public member of the derived class also. Okay, so let me do one thing. Here I create one public, I use a public public accessibility modifier. And now what I write, I write some, suppose I write something like this: cout the name of the employee is, suppose, and then I write name, and then I give a new line mark. Okay, it is something like this. Now if you observe, my dear friends, then name is a protected member of which class? It is a protected member of employee class. And now once name is a protected member of the employee class, I am trying to access it in the derived class. Will I be able to access it? Yes, I will be able to access it. Why I will be able to access it? Because because permanent employee class is derived from the employee class using public inheritance, and in public inheritance the protected members of the base class become protected members of the derived class. So in this case, name is a protected members of the base class, that is the employee class. So it has now become a protected members of the derived class also. That is why as a protected member, it is accessible from within the class. But now suppose I try to write something like this. Okay, so now I just remove it. I'm not going to post on it. I will create an object of permanent employee, suppose permanent employee, and p1 is the object. Okay, then I say, suppose p1 dot set name, and I say Nikhil. Will I be able to access p1 dot set name from outside the class? Yes, I will be able to access. Why? Because set name is public member of employee class, and in the permanent employee, which is being publicly derived from the employee class, in public inheritance, the public members of the base class become public members of the derived class. So that means set name has now become a public member of which class? The permanent employee class. That is why I can access it from outside the class. And then I will access p1 dot display. This I can always access because display is a public member of permanent employee class. So here, if I just try to run this application, clean and build, and then I go to run this application. Let us see what is output. The name of the employee is, of course, Nikhil. So through set name, I was able to set the name of the employee, and through display method, I was able to display the employee. But now, can I do something like this? p1 dot suppose I say name. See, in the permanent employee class, the name variable was accessible. Okay, it was accessible, but I am not able to do something like this. p1 dot name. If I try to do it, let's suppose if I try to do it clean and build, then it will, of course, give compile time errors. Why it will give? Because it is not able to resolve it. Why? Because it is a protected members, and protected members, my dear friends, when you are asked about protected members, then protected members are just like private members. That is, they are only accessible from within the class, except the given exception that they are also accessible from a derived class also. So protected members are like private members because they are only accessible from within the class. But when you derive a class from the class in which there is a protected members, then in the derived class also you can access the protected members. We will see about the details of all this in the upcoming videos, but here it is very clear, because name is a protected members of which class? It is a protected member of permanent employee class. That is why it is not you are not able to access it from within outside the class, but within the class you can do it. How? Over here you have already done it. Okay, so now let me do one thing. I think it is correct. Okay, now let me, I just giving one error. I'll just clean and build it once again so that I can verify everything is correct. Yeah, everything is correct. Now let me do one thing. I will not make this I will remove name being protected members, and I will make it a private member. So can you guess what will be the problem in this case? Yeah, the problem in this case will be something like this, because the name variable is public in which class? It is public, it is private in the employee class. Okay, the name is now private in employee class. Once the name is private in employee class, that means in the derived class now it will not be visible. Why it will not be visible? If you just go to this private this PowerPoint presentation, then what I have written over here, the base private elements remain private to the base and are not accessible by members of the derived class. You just see the last line, this line. The base private members remain private to the base and are not accessible by members of the derived class. So that means what? This means something like this. This means something like this, because name is a private member of employee class, so it is not visible in which class? The permanent employee class. That is why when I try to access name in the display method in the permanent employee class, I am not able to access this. Why I am not able to access it? Because it is not visible, as it is a private member of employee class. Okay, so this is clear. But now let us try to understand the the kind of purpose behind public inheritance. Why do we do public? Why do we actually do public inheritance? Why it is done? What is the the benefit of doing public inheritance? Let us try to understand it. Sorry, to understand public inheritance, let me do one thing. I will suppose say that the employee has salary also. Okay, and I will just make them now protected. Okay, for the sake of simplicity, I will make the salary also protected. But now what I will do, void set salary. Suppose there is one method and integer, suppose salary, and this I can write very easily, this arrow salary equal to salary. Okay, so there is one more member variable in the employee class. Suppose I say the salary of the employee. Now there is a method, the calculate tax method, and calculate tax method returns the tax of the employee. So I suppose I say that the tax is 10% of the salary. So what I will say, salary into 0.1. okay, this is I am going to write. So to calculate the tax of the employee, I can write salary into 0.1. Now this is the method to calculate the tax of the employee, but I also need to calculate the tax of what? I also need to calculate the tax of permanent employee. Okay, okay, I have added 3 e's in the over here, so it's not a correct spelling. I will just, it's a kind of, I don't know, typo mistake. Anyway, all right. So calc tax is a public member of employee class. So my dear friends, calc tax can also be said that is a service that is associated with the employee class. It is a kind of service that is associated with the employee class, and I also want this service to be associated with the permanent employee, because for the permanent employee I also need to calculate what? I also need to calculate his tax. So that is why I do public inheritance over here. Why? Because calc tax is a public member of employee class. So in public inheritance, if you do public inheritance from employee class, then calc tax will become the public member of permanent employee class also. So in that case, if you create an object of permanent employee, then through permanent employee you will be able to get the you will be able to get the tax of this employee. How? Like this. Okay, suppose then for that you'll have to say p1 dot set salary. Suppose I say the salary is whatever it may be. It is quite high because it is my salary. Okay, so I will be able to do it. So just let me make it more clear. If you are not able to get it, this is simple. I'm just trying to bring this one point into your notice, that calc tax is a service that is associated with employee, and I also want this service to be associated with permanent employees. So for that I will be using public inheritance. Why? Because this is a public member, so it will become a public member of permanent employee also, the calc tax method, and then I will be able to access this method from outside the class using the object of permanent employee. So that is that is the purpose why we do public inheritance. Okay, thank you so much. In the next video we will try to understand what is private and what is protected inheritance. Okay, thank you so much.